Let's talk about what it means for the Flat Earth community to represent the United Nations logo. I wrote hoax backwards because I think it is backwards. So this is the United Nations logo. It's also a polar projection map or Gleason map, or the map that the Flat Earth has adopted as their official map. And I don't know if it's because of these people who are definitely disinformation agents and shills the Flat Earth Society. We know that they're not going to put the truth out there, but for some reason, everyone's trusting their map. This is Alex Gleason, and he supposedly is a Christian man, and he wrote a book, a Flat Earth book, but he made a map, and when he patented it, he patented it calling it a polar projection map, which makes sense. He looks very Masonic to me in the pages that I read in this 433 page book, so I'm not sure that I trust this guy. The way that I view the map is it should be directional, from north being at the top, south at the bottom, west on the left, east on the right, exactly like a compass. So that bothers me about the United Nations map. They have the North Pole in the center, and the North Pole is not in the center on the compass. So this is the military grid reference system. It provides a means to represent any location on the surface of the Earth using an alphanumeric string. So how would this work if the North Pole was in the middle? This picture is interesting because it shows how that map can be divided perfectly into squares. So that's what our military uses, that's what our navigational system uses. So picture the North Pole at the top, South Pole at the bottom. Just something that I drew when I'm trying to work it out in my mind, but the throne of God is at the top of the flat earth, and I'm going to talk more about that later. These are just some other maps that I studied and looked at. I believe this one is similar to the United Nations map. I studied a lot of maps to try to figure out how could it work with the North Pole in the center. How does it work with the compass? Because I can't deal with the explanation that north is in the center and south is everything else, and east and west are going in a circle. I cannot accept that in my mind. I feel like the compass would have north in the middle if north was truly in the middle. So that's why this map makes a lot more sense to me. It looks just like a compass, and if you go to the North Pole, you're going to see lights like this. And I believe that's the throne of God. I truly think that the Flat Earth Society map, the United Nations map, hides God. Because even Christians will give you an explanation for these lights that match up with a scientific explanation. But if you read the Bible, then you know that right there, that picture looks like the throne of God, looks like lights coming down from the throne of God. There's a sea of glass up there that they walk on, and I imagine it's very beautiful. To me, these are heavenly lights, and you can't explain them by some Tesla phenomenon. These are lights from heaven. And the only places you can see these lights are the places that would be close to the top of the firmament, the North Pole, and the bottom of the firmament, the South Pole. It just doesn't make sense that you would see the lights from the center of the earth and the bottom of the earth. These are amazing lights. Sometimes they look like clouds, sometimes they look like beams coming out of the sky. And this is not Project Bluebeam stuff. This has been happening since God created the earth. And there are tons of eyewitness accounts and stories about these lights in the north and in the south. So something else that I found besides the aurora borealis lights was just, the ice wall, the top of the North Pole at the top of the flat earth, and South Pole, beautiful places like this. I feel like I traveled the entire earth, but I didn't leave my home. So I looked at as many places as I could possibly find that would be close to the North Pole and close to the South Pole. What are the furthest places that we can go west? What are the furthest places that we can go east? And what do those places look like? When I came across some of these pictures, I was just absolutely in awe. These pictures are stunning. Look at this beautiful glacier of ice. And that's what I imagine the firmament to look like. Okay, we need to talk about these two oceans, because when these two meet in the middle at the magnetic force, two things. One, it's a straight line, and two, they don't mix. There are so many beautiful and unique places on this flat earth surrounded by an ice wall that is sometimes made up of mountains, sometimes it's made up of volcanoes, sometimes it's just like an ice shelf, like in Antarctica. There's lakes of fire, a new meaning to the words lake of fire and hell. A lot of volcanoes around the edge. There's too many phenomenons to only have one pole. So here's an aerial view, and it's really important to note this, that the North Pole and the South Pole are both elevated much higher than the rest of the Earth, 4,000 to 11,000 feet higher. And that is because they are ice walls that contain the oceans and hold us in. I studied a lot of the biblical flat earth photos with Bible verses to also gather what I'm trying to convey about where the throne of God is and why the lights at both poles are so incredible. But these are some neat pictures. The abyss of the waters. I do believe that Sheol, abyss, all of that, it's in the ocean. It's in the waters. Like hell goes down, heaven's above us, hell is below us. The firmament's in the sky. There are floodgates, waters above the firmament. Just some pretty pictures. It looks like the sky is trying to crawl through a portal and get to heaven. And you can see in the background kind of how heaven is working on a circuit, and it's actually true, but that's just getting even deeper than I want to go on this video. I just want you guys to know by me making this video that I'm being sincere. So this is to the west. This is like some ice terrain if you go furthest west. And notice the volcano there. So there's a lot of volcanic activity around this magnetic flat earth in the center along the equator area. This is to the west. This is all the way to the west. a mountain. It's, another ice wall mountain. I can't draw everything without seeing it or show every bit of terrain without actually traveling there, but there's enough pictures on the internet to show me that we are surrounded by an ice wall and our navigational systems are still correct. We don't have to be surrounded by Antarctica. Like, this is in the north. We are not just surrounded by Antarctica. There's also been a lot of airplane crashes and boats getting stuck in the ice in the North Pole area. So North Pole and South Pole, they have a lot of similarities, a lot of ice. We also have ice on the west and the east. Beautiful. One of the things that people are struggling with the most is the Gleason maps seem to have made, look at those chemtrails. The Gleason maps seem to have made more sense with flight patterns. And I really didn't expect to go as in depth on this video as I did, but I wanted to show that even if you watch this and at the end you see the flight patterns and you don't agree with that, I want you to hear and see everything I'm showing you right now. See, it can totally be inside of a circle, and the North Pole can be at the top and the South Pole can be at the bottom, with the equator being in the center. That shipwreck is actually at the North Pole. You can't go beyond the North Pole. You can't fly beyond it. Okay, I think I lost train of thought, but my point is, if you watch the flight patterns and you still can't understand that the flights do travel on the map that you can navigate, basically Google Maps, that map. If you can't understand that, you need to see the rest of the story, some of this other stuff like the compass and the aurora borealis lights and ice like this, for example. And plus, there's also 24-hour daylight. There's 24-hour, and then places close to the poles, they have 17-hour daylight, and they have that with the darkness too. So again, remember that they're both elevated very high. And sometimes when the sun travels in and out of portals, it is like going higher and lower elevations. And so sometimes the sun does not go high enough to light those areas. And then sometimes it doesn't go low enough to make those areas dark, because they are elevated. And you can look up stories about the 24-hour sun. It's not a hoax. The people that like the Gleason map, the United Nations map, will say that the 24-hour sun is a hoax, and it just isn't. Another thing I studied was the Book of Enoch to see which shape of the earth does the sun make the most sense with the way that it travels. And again, just put that ball, like flatten it out, take out the air in the middle, and it works. And this is just an Enoch calendar to show you that there are gates around heaven. And if you look at, the purple light stuff, like that is where heaven is. It's above us. And it's hard to draw something flat when there's a dome in heaven and a kingdom with, okay, so, also I looked at a lot of ancient maps and ancient biblical maps. So I spent time trying to figure these maps out. And if you look around this map, it looks like an ice wall with heaven above us. You know, these little. Okay, flip into the next map. Yeah, here's a map. You can also section it off in squares once again, and that is a navigational map. That's how we travel. Ancient maps. These were a lot of fun to look at. Yeah, this map looks real close to what it actually is. This is a navigational map. You could get from point A to B using that map. Not quite sure what I'm seeing with this one, but I did look at so many maps. And the reason why I'm showing you all of the things that I looked at, see, okay, this is just, it basically is the flat earth map, but they split it the wrong way. I'm just showing you that I've looked at a lot of stuff. I spent a lot of time with this. I didn't just pull an idea out. Actually, I've never been comfortable with the United Nations map ever. What is this? So I've been researching it, but never felt confident enough to say anything until now because I just cannot make sense out of it. And I think we need to reevaluate it. And I think we're all going around, you know, flashing the one world order map. What is the United Nations? What are they all about? That map is just a map looking at the top of the globe and projecting down. But it's not, and it never has been, a navigational map. This is one of my favorite older pictures just because of how the portals work, and this map is in alignment with the Book of Enoch, you know, around the edges. Yeah. See, navigational, it works on squares. Navigational map, and it shows different mountains and forests, like where everything is located geographically. Tired. Again, the same thing. It can be divided in squares, and I just think at this point I am going to show you guys a video that I found where the guy is also thinking that the earth is definitely flat, but for some reason he only sees a square. I see right there how you can put it inside of a circle with an ice wall, and I also know that we are surrounded by ice. Ice is surrounding us and holding in all of the continents. Yeah, Flat Earth Society, we really don't care what you think about Behind the Curve because we think the same thing about you. I'm really against the Flat Earth Society and don't think they just handed us a map on a silver platter and like, this is the one. I know that there are a lot of sites that have talked about how our flat earth doesn't work, and I know a lot of people have invested in models of it or logos or videos to make it work. So a lot of time and effort has been spent on this model, but that doesn't necessarily mean it works. Anyway, the hardest thing that I've been able to explain myself, because I just should have paid more attention in geography. Not that any of it was true, but it's the flights, like explaining how I see the flights. So I did find this video of a guy that explains the flights and does a much better job than I do. And even though he is saying square earth, you can totally put it in a circle with an ice wall. And you can definitely say that the North Pole is a sufficient ice wall considering the size of like how ginormous like the mountains and stuff are in that area, that you cannot bypass. You absolutely cannot bypass them. So I do want you guys to visualize in your minds the North Pole being in the center and being that highly elevated. Like, I think it would melt all of us. I really do. It would, like, global warming would be just done and over, and we would be all underwater. But batteries and magnets, they all work in a specific way. Just my picture again. But you actually need a battery, and you need a North Pole and a South Pole. You need positive and negative energy in order to make something turn. And you guys all have to notice that the sun, moon, the stars, like, it's above us. It is definitely turning. And it can't just do that on one pole, unipole, just one pole. It doesn't work. And even if the North Pole did contain its own South Pole, because I've heard some of you say that, if the North Pole contained its own South Pole, it still wouldn't be strong enough to do some of the things that you see the Earth do. We're still missing some elements here. I watched at least 20 videos on how magnetism works and how magnets can make things spin. And I also know that the sun is positive energy and the moon is negative energy. So it can very well work like batteries to the magnetic earth and create the rotation in the sky. There's more to it. And how beautiful is that picture? Oh, here's my YouTube history with some of the different magnetism videos I watched in circuits, because I do believe that above us is a circuit. I think some of those ancient pictures had hints in it. They had wheels and circuits, and I wanted to learn about energy, and I spent a lot of time doing it. I studied Polaris. I studied the star trails. I have researched this a lot. So now I am going to play the video with the flight paths and let me know what you guys think. And this is not the video that I wanted to create, because I have entirely different pictures and I have actually other videos that I want to share. But I did want to put this together because I feel like people are wrapped up heavily in the flight patterns. So just listen to how this guy explains everything. And let me know what you guys think. And sorry I rambled on.
3. The commercial air travel routes for the southern hemisphere are wrong. This is an easy thing you can check out in 60 seconds. Take a map reading of the distance between anywhere near Australia and anywhere in South America. It's a straight shot across the South Pacific. Now find your favorite travel site and try to get there non-stop. See what happens. The routes start turning ridiculous. I used to business travel for years, and I've never seen anything like it. It's the one thing in the general public world they can't hide, the actual distance between these two places. On a round world, the flight is easy, just a straight shot across an ocean. But on a flat world, it becomes the greatest distance between 2 points. There are no shortcuts, so they distract you with multiple connections and layovers. It's only blind luck that the United States was in the northern hemisphere. Otherwise, the increased traffic would have raised eyebrows by now.
Add the power forward. And you'll start feeling, make sure your feet come down. Just go ahead and shove it all the way in. See how that nose slowly starting to pull, and it takes that right rudder to keep it going straight down the runway. So we're looking for 55 knots, and at 55 we pull back on the wheel, but start then climb at 60. Kind of lower the nose a little bit. So see how that nose is coming up like that? Well, you got to hold that forward pressure, right? Well, there's this gizmo right down here called the trim wheel. Now go ahead and hold the control wheel, hold it at the same altitude, but start to trim this thing. Pull it a little sharper than normal, but you get the point. 30-degree banks about max. And Jefferson County traffic, Cessna 522 Sierra's final runway 9, full stop. Okay, so everything's good. We've got everything here. The flaps are good. Follow me through on this. So we're coming down, we have good airspeed, 70, so now we go to idle. And once we get down there, we start pulling back, and then just kind of hold it off right. A little extra speed, there it is. And we just make the turn off the runway.
Flat Earth clues.
want to briefly explain why I think this map is better for the flat earth map with two poles, the North Pole being at the top and the South Pole being at the bottom. I do not believe that we should be representing the United Nations map at all, and I do not think this is correct at all. We're going to talk about the debate on the flight paths, and I found this video, and I really think that I am pretty much in alignment with everything that this person says. And the flight patterns actually make sense on both maps, but this map is a deception. So there's a major claim that flight paths within the northern hemisphere look like, sorry I missed it, whereas flights within the south take much longer and go through the northern hemisphere. So this is the map that we both believe it is, and I believe it's in a circle just like this. And see the white outside? I believe we are surrounded by ice walls. The equator goes straight across.